Raid farms try to solve the biggest problem in Minecraft servers, the lack of player interactions. So it's introduced a world border to keep everyone together, a currency and even complete freedom through Anarchy. So why isn't it fun? I actually do like raid farms for experimenting with different things to try to make servers fun again, but it's lacking something in trying to increase interactions. What is that, and why does the world border and Anarchy not work? What the world border essentially tries to do is to minimize the area where players can go, increasing how often players meet. But in order for interactions to happen, players actually need a purpose to interact. I want you to imagine this scenario. You're walking along your local high street to go pick up your car to go home. Along the way, you see many people walking past, and when you finally get to your car at the end of the street, you realize that no one's approached you or talked to you. Even though you see people in the server and know that they exist, why don't these interactions make you feel like you're having fun, or that the server has a good community? This is down to something I call engagement theory, the consequences between healthy and harmful interactions. These interactions can also be done by a player or by a server's environment. In those successful, fun servers, harmful interactions are minimal if not non-existent, and it is something that a player can feel in the environment, the community, and all other aspects of a server. So with this in mind, let's look at why raid farms wasn't successful, or in other words, its harmful interactions outweighed its healthy interactions. Now raid farms has quite a heavy focus on its use of a weak currency, and this actually brings more harmful interactions than healthy interactions. So to understand why, we first need to know what it's supposed to do. The currency attempts to encourage players to build a base, settle down, and defend their money against hostile enemies. This concept is basically how faction servers work and, in fact, thrive. But in an SMP server, this just forces players to spread out and feel skeptical towards everyone else on the server. While you might argue that this encourages players to be competitive, in reality it just makes the server a more hostile and generally unhappy place to be in. But Pine1LP has actually thought about this. At the server spawn, there are many shops and housing plots that you can rent, protecting you and your items from griefers. This is also a great way of legitimizing the weak currency by giving it a purpose, only if it wasn't locked behind a rank. This makes new players disadvantaged and lagging behind other players who have progressed more. This just completely counteracts the community spirit and interactions-based server that raid farm supposedly is, making new players give up after being killed too many times. Although this does give players a reason to interact by fighting, this is another example of what I call a harmful interaction, the kind that makes your server more toxic and unfriendly. But finally, I have another question to ask. What is raid farms as a server? Well, looking at its website, it says that it's a semi-anarchy Minecraft server that, wait, go back, anarchy, and that changes everything. A societal system which has no rule of law, complete freedom, and encourages individualism. And this is fundamentally incompatible with encouraging player interaction, making the server feel hostile and the community non-existent. Griefing is not a unique problem for raid farms, but the intensity and prevalence of it would definitely turn a new player off from playing. The landscape around the spawn area also looks dangerous, hostile, and hard to explore. It makes the server feel unwelcome and basically warns players that whatever they build will be griefed. So it's just not worth creating anything on the server, and you might as well give up now. Not only does raid farms have anarchy and a weak currency, it also has a free-for-all PvP. These all sound like things that are very intuitive and obvious that would make a server fun. So why isn't raid farms full of players? It can be very easy to assume that a system which allows for full freedom to be the ultimate solution for players to be the most satisfied on a server. But just like how in real life, not everyone has the ability to be successful in their own right, and some others hoard wealth and power for their own gain, full unregulated freedom without any rules would not achieve complete and total happiness on a server. During raid farm's opening weeks, they had many new players who were excited for the new server's philosophy, and as they started at the same time, this group of players worked with each other and all progressed at the same rate. But when a new group of players joined, they created a power imbalance. The earlier players had an inherent advantage over the new players through no fault of their own. But in raid farms without outside help or intervention, the new players were left to their own devices. This is essentially a big evolutionary filter. But if a player is determined enough to keep playing despite being disadvantaged, they become another one of the privileged group. This cycle will only repeat until new players don't decide to keep playing. This is basically an attempt at replicating real life, and I can understand why this seems to work. Players joining civilization adjacent servers expect a certain amount of real life elements, like money. This is a really good way of signaling to the player what the server is about, and it's also really intuitive and well understood, so players can immediately trade and at the same time legitimizes the currency even more. However, the fact that society is so flawed tells you everything about having money as the base for interactions. Money will always place some things with more value and others with less. Pinecone LP's goal of encouraging interactions isn't a bad intention, and I think that he's right in doing that, but money mostly brings harmful interactions. Fighting, griefing, and stealing are all exacerbated by money. As I said in my last video, we need somewhere that the community can come together and interact. However, there's something else that our server needs: a common goal. A Minecraft server is like if you put 10 random people in a room and just tell them to have fun. No instructions, no guidance, and nothing for them to do. To really encourage and guide people towards the path of having fun, your server needs a project from the very start. This is the only way to make players work together as a community, increasing your server's healthy interactions right from the start. Another thing that destroys many server communities and ruins the game for most new players is hostility. The aesthetics, how a server looks visually, sends a welcoming message to new players and is another healthy interaction on behalf of the server community to new players. So, a server must not be griefable to keep its landscape warm and welcoming. New players and more casual players should also be protected from crazy rampages, because we all have fun differently. And this also goes back to my point about community. A server with no sense of cohesion and unity will fail not only because of the lack of healthy interactions, but also because the fact that playing single player would be better than having your builds destroyed every day. This is also where I'll introduce the one and only required server rule: griefing is banned. Even though Pinecone's idea of different societal ranks reflects real life very well, as I've already said, the inequality of power is the exact reason why real life isn't a beautiful utopia. A server that's fun for everyone needs to have true equality and equal opportunity for all players. So what does this mean for you? This isn't to say that an Anarchy server can never be fun, and that you should never have an Anarchy server, but that having a fun server goes way beyond gameplay mechanics. It encompasses the server's aesthetics, interactions between players, and most important of all, community. But if you do want to join a friendly, welcoming, and non-archaic community that talks about things like this video, join the Minecraft Server Theory Institute. But for now, I have MSTI. Thank you for watching.